This story was shared by a woman on Reddit. The following is her first-person account. I don't have a husband. Okay, haha, very funny that I'm posting this in a subreddit full of ghosts and other spooky wacko things. I guess above all else, getting no play is what keeps folks up at night. But jokes aside, this isn't a troll, this isn't mindless complaining, and it sure as hell isn't funny. I don't have a husband, and I don't want to have one. I think it'd be helpful to note that I'm not a fan of romance. I mean, I can see why people like it. I'm not exempt from the majority that swoons at rom-coms, and I've had my fair share of "aw, he's cute" moments. But when it comes to actually thinking about sharing my life with someone else, it's like thinking about a parasite. Who has the time to be sending good morning texts every day? And don't get me started on my ever-growing list of pet peeves and icks. Maybe I'm just picky, or maybe I've just never been in love, but I'm fine with growing up and only ever having friends, maybe a few exotic pets. Romance, as I see it, is boring and inconvenient. You can imagine my shock when I noticed a second toothbrush in my toothbrush holder last month. I had spent the better part of the morning milling about. The night prior, I had noticed that my clothes bin was overflowing, and by morning I was ironing and sorting what had been dried last night, just to get it out of the way. Between that and getting distracted with some other mess, I had neglected brushing my teeth, right up until I sighed and smelled death. When I had rushed to the bathroom, I wildly grasped for my toothbrush, already turning on the tap so I could speed things up. Laundry was already tedious enough, and I didn't want to push it back any further. If I took too long here, then I'd forget all about my clothes. I only gave pause when I noticed how weird the bristles felt. They felt out of place and sharp, almost as if the person using them had been scrubbing the enamel off of their teeth. Which, no, that couldn't be right. I had just bought that brush. Even if I was in the habit of punishing my teeth every morning, there's no way it could have gotten like that already. I looked back to my toothbrush holder, finding that my regular brush was where I had left it last night. The one I was holding was used, thin, and not mine. I got my carbon monoxide checked the same day. Call it paranoia, health anxiety, or whatever, but there's no way in hell I'd brush something like that off easily. Pun intended. I have seen far too many movies and have screamed at way too many dumb characters on TV to repeat their silly mistakes. It turned out, however, that things were fine with my carbon monoxide, and there weren't any other leaks in my apartment either. When the two maintenance guys who had come out to check were leaving, one nodded towards my shoe rack. If you're still experiencing the same symptoms, you and your husband ought to take a visit to the hospital. He shook his head. Pal of mine thought it was his monoxide too. Turns out he had something up with his brain. Pal of mine, my butt. I've seen that Reddit post before. Regardless of the blatant plagiarism, I plastered on a polite smile and sent the two men on their way. It had only registered that he had said husband when I nearly busted my nose tripping over a pair of dirt-caked work boots. I frowned, first at the implication that those boots couldn't have been mine, then at the realization that those boots actually weren't mine. There were odd little things like that all throughout my house. Like, for example, when I had finally gotten around to putting away my clothes, I noticed old shirts a few sizes too big, company logos that I've never bought from wide across the front. Across the span of a few weeks, I received voicemails from people I've never heard of, all seeming to congratulate someone for something. There's this cafe I frequent, one just around the corner from where I work. On occasion, on slower days, I'd find myself smiling about how cute the barista is. Not exactly a crush, far from it actually, but there are days where you need to seriously romanticize life, or you'll die from how boring things are. That's all my coffee shop visits had really been, just grabbing an Americano and sighing about the dreamy dude at the counter I knew nothing about. He was gone. I guess it could have just been a sudden quitting, there one day and gone the next sort of a thing. But it was weird how his coworkers acted like he hadn't been there in the first place. When I had gathered the courage to ask, at the risk of looking like a total creep, the girl behind the counter gave me a confused smile. A guy? She tilts her head. black hair slipping from where it had been tucked behind her ear. I nod. He's usually here around this time. You know, brown hair, glasses. She still looks confused, and I continue, getting desperate. He's tall, too. Cute in the face? So much for not sounding like a creep. Fortunately, the girl gives a small laugh. Pfft, I wish we had someone like that working here. Another one of the baristas, walking past, gives a small "Heyo" when she says that, and the girl smiles again. Sorry, maybe you've got the wrong place? Yeah, probably. Sorry, I mumble, taking the drink I had ordered from the end of the counter and pushing open the door. Home had begun to smell different. I imagine it's like when a baby deer come back to its mom smelling human. I couldn't recognize my place as my own anymore. It was when I found boxers laying around that I officially, totally lost it. Within the hour, I had left the house, opting to instead go to the library and turn to good old Dr. Google with my symptoms. Aside from the carbon monoxide, there were a few old posts where it turned out a person had DID, or were experiencing these funky lapses in neural transmissions. All the medical jargon was making my head spin, and hopelessly, I logged off of the computer I had been using, settling down in the driver's seat of my car and adjusting it closer to the wheel. So long as I was away from home, I could lie to myself. I could tell myself that I've just been stressed lately. I could tell myself that what I was experiencing was simply the result of burnout, just as long as I wasn't home. I wound up walking mindlessly about the grocery store, picking at produce and convincing myself that I wasn't scared to go home. Why would I be? There shouldn't be anything I wasn't expecting. I knew there wasn't. As my hand curled around a yellowish-green mango, something felt foreign and odd on my ring finger, flush against the skin of the mango and the skin of my hand. I didn't look to see what it was. I'm beginning to get the impression that it's supposed to be there. Imogen! Yoo-hoo! The shrill voice of my neighbor, Mrs. Karatar, rang from across the produce section, and she waved me over. Mrs. Karatar had a passion for community like no other. Remarkable, really. If you pointed to any one person in the grocery store and asked her about them, 9 out of 10 times she'd be able to give you their name and at least one fun fact. Right now, we were exchanging pleasantries. She was ranting about the antics the kids in the apartment building were getting up to. You know, she begins, fully turning away from her grocery cart, if I weren't just visiting my daughter, I'd have half a mind to complain to the landlord about the noise. It's outrageous. I just smile and nod, not really paying the conversation any mind until she leaned in close, eyes brimming with mischief. Although, I wouldn't mind seeing any new babes from you two. She leans back, tittering to herself. Really, you'd ought to see my real grandson, a real-life cherub, I tell you. Oh, I've got a picture too. Her voice fades into the rest of the grocery store ambiance, and I take account of what's in my cart in an attempt to calm myself. There's trail mix. I hate trail mix. Why would I buy trail mix? On my drive home, the whole way through, I hardly feel anything outside of a growing dread. When I get into the apartment building, I can hear kids running around in the halls from all the way down here. I take the elevator. When I fling my door open, I hang my keys next to another set. I set the groceries down on my counter. I place the trail mix somewhere I know he'd find it. I look towards my shut bedroom door, and I can hear breathing. I don't know what to do. I'm still in my kitchen. I don't know what the hell is in my bedroom. I don't have a husband. I don't want to have a husband. So why do I have one? Have I always had one? I don't want to go to sleep. I've been a teacher for years now. It's some kind of unspoken rule that every year there will always be a kid that is weird. The level and variety of weirdness vary, from benign to outright dangerous. My first year as a teacher, we had a student bring in a Stanley cup filled with gasoline that he poured in the boys' bathroom toilets and set them on fire. His reasoning? The bathrooms always smelled bad, and if the toilets were gone, they would have to remodel the whole thing. And he wasn't wrong about either of those things. He did get expelled, though, and avoided jail through what I assume was a very expensive lawyer. After that, we banned water that wasn't in clear bottles. My second year was a girl who had an odd obsession with breaking into lockers and leaving rocks inside them. The third year, we had a boy who would walk up behind people and scream into their ears when they weren't expecting it. He got punched a lot before his parents found him a good therapist. Then in my fourth year, I had a new student, Simon Lynch, who all the incoming freshmen agreed was weird. But so far, he is relatively benign. He also has some of the best grades in the school. He's helpful and kind, and even has a small group of friends he hangs out with. In class, he's an angel. The weirdness comes from the fact that he keeps talking about the God in the corner. He mentioned it in passing, even to me. He talks about this God so nonchalantly that you can almost dismiss it, like it's something he saw in a movie or read about in a book. I don't think anyone gave it any mind when he started talking about it, but the thing is, he never stopped talking about it. When there was a test, he would remind the other students in the class that if they made an offering to the God in the corner, they'd pass with flying colors. And apparently, the power of this God didn't stop at getting good grades. It helped with passing your driver's test, for helping you get rid of acne and lose weight and heal your dog's seizures. Nothing was too big or too small for the God in the corner. It was getting annoying, and I'd had to intervene and remind him that the classroom wasn't a place for religious talk. It's all right, Ms. Quinn. It's not a religion. More like a cosmic force. I don't think you can actually pray to the God in the corner. Just give it things, he said with a small smile. After that, the talk of the God went quiet. There weren't any tests coming up. Then Shannon Berber came in one day, whispering to the other students that the God in the corner was real. And even better, it worked. Shannon had always had thick glasses. She was actually legally blind, and her eyesight was predicted to only get worse. But she had listened to Simon and, faced with nothing to lose, had made an offering to the God, and it hadn't even been a lot. Apparently, the God was satisfied with whatever you gave it, as long as it was sincere and something that meant something to you. It didn't want blood or your firstborn or anything so cliché. Shannon had made it a pie, a gooseberry pie, and a framed canvas of her own artwork. It had been a watercolor she'd made in class and been particularly proud of. She had placed these things in the corner, called the God, and gave it her wish, and the offerings had been taken, and her eyes had been fixed that night. It was a miracle, for lack of a better word. I had never seen Shannon so happy. Her eyes were large and lovely, a clear hazel green that I had never been able to properly see. After that, talk of the God in the corner became more commonplace. One of the worst students in my class, Maxwell Hardy, suddenly started getting straight A's. Another girl, Emily Stillway, got a full-ride scholarship to her dream school. For some other students, they grew taller, got thinner, had better skin. Some even developed athletic abilities seemingly overnight. It was weird, and surely it was all a coincidence. It had to be. And then, my boyfriend Kyle got in a car wreck. He had been driving home when another driver, who was too busy texting to drive properly, T-boned him at an intersection. He was lucky to be alive at all, but he was in a coma, and there was no hope of him waking up, or him even living past the end of the week. I called Simon that evening. We're not supposed to call students, but I knew where to find his personal information, and I called his cell. My heart was pounding as I dialed the numbers. "Hello?" Simon asked from the other end of the line. "Simon, it's Ms. Quinn, your teacher from school," I stammered out. "I know your voice, Ms. Quinn. I think I know why you're calling. I heard about your boyfriend. Do you want to know how to make an offering to the God in the corner?" he asked with certainty. "Yes," was all I said back. "It's easy, Ms. Quinn. All you need is a corner somewhere in your house, or any building will do. It must be dark. There must be a shadow, just enough that you can't see the corner anymore. And then you give it something that's personal to you, something that's of sentimental value, or something you made. Even a pie will do. Did you know Ryan Blair sang a song to the God in the corner? Something he wrote himself, and now he's the best player on the basketball team," Simon said conversationally. "What do I say? What do I say to get the God to come?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You say out loud, 'This is an offering to the God in the corner.' Then you say what your wish is, and then the god takes the offering and it's all over. Oh, the most important part. Don't try to take a photo of the god or record it anyway, or turn on the light and reveal what's in the corner. There are consequences to that, you know, Simon explained. What happens if I do that? I asked, fear creeping into my voice. Well, my uncle did that once. We never saw him again. I think he might still be alive, but honestly, isn't that scarier than being dead? The dead don't suffer, Simon said, so matter-of-factly that it sent a shiver down my spine. Thank you, Simon. That's all I needed to know, I said in a rush. You're welcome, Ms. Quinn. I'll see you in class, Simon said, then ended the call. I sat there for a few minutes, genuinely contemplating what I was thinking of doing. I'd already crossed a line by calling a student like I did just now. Was I really this desperate? To try to give an offering to some kind of god that lived in a corner? I was. I couldn't lose my Kyle if there was even a slim possibility of saving him, but I had no idea what to offer up. I was not an artist or a musician. I could barely cook, and I wasn't sure if the god in the corner would be satisfied with scrambled eggs and mac and cheese. Then it hit me. I did have something to offer it, something of great sentimental value. I dropped to my knees and reached under the bed, pulling out a lockbox that held the few valuables I owned, plus important documents. I opened it and pulled out an old wristwatch. It was my father's watch, and it had been my grandfather's watch before that. My dad had died when I was a teenager, and one of the few things that he had passed down to me. It was too sentimental for me to wear on a daily basis, but I would take it out occasionally to hold it and think of my dad. My heart dropped as I held it. It really was the item I treasured most in the world, but I would give it up if it meant saving someone that I loved. I looked up and locked eyes with the corner of the bedroom farthest from the bed. The light always had a hard time reaching it. I stood up and quickly switched the ceiling light off. It plunged half the room into near darkness, and the corner itself was now completely black. I edged closer to the corner, feeling a mix of fear and hopeful anxiety. I lay the watch down at the edge of the shadow. I swallowed hard and started to speak. This is an offering to the god in the corner. Please heal my boyfriend Kyle and make him as healthy and whole as he was before the accident, I said timidly. A few seconds passed, and lots of conflicting emotions raced through my brain. Did I need to speak louder? Maybe the offering wasn't good enough. Or the more likely explanation was that this was all insane and my student had played a vile joke on me when I wasn't in my right mind. And then the shadows shifted. I gasped, falling backwards so I was flat on my backside. Two arms emerged from the shadows. A scream caught in my throat, and I clasped my hand over my mouth. The arms were long, far longer than a person's arm could possibly be. The flesh was a dark ashen gray, not black. The hands were long and the fingers delicate, almost feminine. Short, dark fingernails that glimmered sharply in the dim light caught my eye. The hands moved slowly and purposefully. They plucked the watch up and turned it to the shadow, as if a face I couldn't see was taking stock of the offering. I heard a faint murmur, a whisper that sounded pleased. And then the arms, hands, and the watch retracted into the shadows like a rock disappearing into a lake after it's thrown in. I screamed then, a small, pathetic sound as I ran from the room. I stood shaking in my living room as I tried to process what I had just seen, what I had just done. I didn't go back into the bedroom that night. I didn't need to. I wasn't sure how much time had passed, probably no more than 20 minutes, when my phone rang. It was Kyle's mom. Maddie, you need to come to the hospital right now," his mom practically screamed over the phone. "Oh God, what's happened? Is Kyle dead?" I sobbed, fearing the answer. No, he's awake and he's okay, and he's asking for you," she shouted back. Kyle was healed. It was nothing short of a miracle. Kyle was being held as a medical marvel, and the doctors promised that studies would be done on him in the future. I took him home a few days later. He was the same old Kyle, though he did tease me now about why I wanted the lights on in the bedroom and why I always stared at corners now. We got engaged not long afterwards and married. We even started our own family. Simon continued to be a good student. He graduated from high school as a valedictorian and got a full scholarship to a very prestigious university. Even that was years ago, and I see Simon's name on the news now. He's started a new tech company that people are saying will be the next Tesla. In the photos I've seen of him, he looks handsome and self-assured, and it always leaves me wondering, what is the extent of the power of the God in the corner? If a stranger offers to pay your dinner bill, be careful when you leave your table. I'm a server at a Midwestern diner. A few weeks ago, a customer appeared at one of the booths. I say appeared because I hadn't seen her come in, and usually I'm very attentive to the sound of the doorbell. It was a pretty bustling evening, though. I approached to take her order. She sat with her back to me, her curly hair pinned up in a style that reminded me of old movies. Her age was hard to determine from behind, but she looked to be in her 60s, I guess. She was sitting perfectly still, statuesque. When I came around to the front of the booth, I gasped and dropped my pen. The woman was not breathing. Lips slightly parted, skin withered and shrunken. No movement. Not the faintest motion of her chest. But it was the eyes that were the giveaway she was dead. Unblinking and unseeing and a little too deeply shrunken in their sockets. Oh God, I took a step back, and then the woman's head turned and she said in a raspy voice, "Just a coffee, please." Her eyes blinked. Not dead after all. Of course, sure. Any milk or sugar? Black. I scurried to get her coffee. When I looked back, she was again motionless. When it came time for the check, she put down a $50 bill. I started to tell her I didn't have change since all she'd ordered was a coffee, but she said, "It's all right, dear. It will cover the meal for that nice family over there." Her head inclined ever so slightly to a family in the corner booth having dinner. The family in the corner were regulars, came here every Sunday with the kids. The parents were divorced. The kids lived with their dad, and their mom always picked them up on weekends. This diner was on the route between the parents' houses, and they'd meet up here to discuss the plans for the next week. They always left a tip, and the kids drew pictures for me. "Really?" I said to the old woman. "That's very nice of you." Without another word, the old woman stood up and left. The family were very pleasantly surprised when I approached and informed them that their meal had been paid for. They asked by who, and I told them the old woman from the other booth. One of the kids looked over where I'd indicated and said, "I didn't see any woman sitting there." Weird. The next time the old woman appeared was several weeks later. It was after midnight. Again, I heard no bell ring above the door. I was wiping down the counters, and when I looked up, there she was, sitting at the same booth, like a statue, silent. I came over to take her order. I wondered if I should ask her about the family. I hadn't seen them in the weeks since she'd paid for their meal. It was strange. They'd been coming every Sunday, and then after she paid their meal, they stopped. As I neared the booth, suddenly the woman inhaled. It struck me that until then she'd been so still, I hadn't been sure if she'd been breathing at all. She turned to me and said, "Coffee, please, black." Sure. Since she wasn't exactly chatty, I just went and got her coffee, trying to work up the nerve to strike up a casual conversation and ask her about the family. Before I could, the doorbell rang and Carlos came in. Carlos was a friend of my boss who liked to drop in once in a while. He ordered a burger, and we began chatting about how things were with his girlfriend and with his girlfriend's boyfriend. I can never keep track of who's in his astonishingly wide relationship circle. Apparently, he'd just adopted a dog. He showed me pictures while he ate. Carlos, not to be mean, but that might be the world's fuggliest dog, I told him. He laughed. Nobody wanted her, that's why I took her. That's sweet of you, but that thing looks like it has rabies. Scabies. What? I'm kidding. She's got mange, though. He started to tell me about how he'd rescued her when I heard a throat clear and remembered the woman at the booth. Shoot, I'd forgotten her order. I hurried to get her coffee, and as I set it down, asked if she wanted anything else, and she put a 20 down and said it was for that nice young man's burger. She didn't even drink the coffee I gave her. She got up and left, ignoring me when I started to ask, "Are you sure? Why do you keep paying for—" "Hey," called Carlos. "Who are you talking to?" "The woman." I turned back, but she was already gone. "What woman? It's just you and me. You okay? Are you high or something?" I looked at the money in my hand. It was real enough. "Burgers on the house," I told him. "For real? Thanks." He scarfed the last bite, hopped up and told me he was late. No idea what sort of date he was off to at 1 a.m., but that's Carlos. And then he was breezing out the door. The next day, I heard he'd been shot. My boss told me. We were chatting about the boss's dog, and I mentioned Carlos's mangy rescue dog, and he suddenly got serious and informed me that last night, Carlos had been jumped on his way to a bar. He'd tried to fight off the muggers, but one of them had a gun. "They shot him in the head," he said grimly. "Jesus," I said. My boss told me Carlos had been rushed to the hospital, but he was hanging by a thread, almost certain to die, or if he survived, he'd be a vegetable. I was shaken, deeply, deeply shaken. Poor Carlos, his poor girlfriend, his poor mangy dog. And a thought intruded. Was it because of the old woman? What about the family that used to come in Sundays but had disappeared? Had misfortune struck them too? I resolved that the next time I saw the old woman, I would ask her what she was doing. I wouldn't let her pay for the next customer. The old woman returned just this afternoon. There were only a handful of customers, as it was between the lunch and dinner hour. As always, I didn't hear her come in. One moment I was busy bussing dishes. The next I spotted her at the booth. I straightened up and approached her. Her sunken eyes turned to me. I could never get over the feeling I was looking at death itself. Then she gave that sudden inhalation, like she was remembering to breathe, and she said, "Coffee, black, and..." I was surprised at the "and." "A root beer float," she added. I just pressed my lips together, nodded, and went to get the drinks, surveyed the room. There were 3 other tables with customers, an old couple, a family with a teenage daughter, a woman working on her laptop. And even though I should have gotten the old woman her drinks right away, I instead made sure to get everyone else's orders to their tables and to get their bills to them. The couple paid, as did the woman on her laptop. That left only the family. They were still eating. I fetched the coffee and the float for the old woman, but mentally resolved not to let her pay for anybody. She did not react to my placing the drinks beside her. I was tense, counting the minutes until the family was near to finishing. The old woman cleared her throat. Ignoring her, I hurried over to the family and asked if they wanted dessert. They didn't, so I asked how they'd like to pay and quickly rang them up. Only then did I return to the old woman's booth. She had not touched either drink. She put a $10 bill on the table and said, "The root beer float is for you." "Oh," I said, and goosebumps rose along my arms, because how did she know that root beer floats are my favorite? "No, I can't have customers buy me drinks. It's against policy." "I insist," she said. "I'll bring you change for the coffee." She got up. "Actually, wait. Here, I'll pay for everything." I quickly reached into my pocket for my wallet and dropped $10 onto the table. "I'll get your coffee, too, on the house, since I took so long with your order." She frowned. "Accept the gift that is given to you." "Nope, I can pay for the root beer float even though I didn't drink it, and your coffee is free." And I took her $10 and, holding my breath, seized her papery hand and shoved the bill into her fingers. She exhaled and left. I didn't turn around as she walked past me, didn't hear the doorbell ring. But a moment later, when I looked over my shoulder, there was no trace of the old woman. A feeling of relief swept over me. A little while later, the dinner hour had arrived and the tables were full. I heard the doorbell ring and it was them. My family of regulars. Today's not a Sunday, and I hadn't seen them in so long, so I was very surprised. I cleaned up their usual booth and got them seated, and when I came over to take their order, I exclaimed about how I'd missed seeing them. "Oh yeah, it was pretty crazy," said the dad. "After we left last time, we drove together, and I don't know if you remember how hard it was raining, but the car skidded and we lost control." You lost control, corrected the mom. Yes, I lost control because it was the minivan that I told you not to get because those things flip way too easily. And it did. It rolled. I mean, it spun out right in the middle of the highway and then flipped over the guardrail and rolled. I swear my soul left my body, said one of the kids. It was very harrowing. We just couldn't come back here for a while, said the mom. Were you hurt? I asked, stunned. Just minor injuries. The police said it was really just miraculous how we all came out of it alive, the mom smiled. I nodded, glad for them, relieved to have my regulars back again. They said they couldn't bring themselves to come for a while because of the accident, but the kids kept asking, so tonight they decided to meet here for dinner. After I put in their order, I called my boss to let him know, because he'd been worried about them too. He sounded delighted on the phone and told me he had some good news of his own. Carlos is going to pull through. He's awake from the coma, and he's now on the road to recovery. That's great, I said, even as, at that moment, something clicked. I typed all this up instead of leaving at the end of my shift tonight. I've been thinking about the old woman, how she looked, well, like death, or maybe more like near death. I keep thinking about how Carlos took a bullet to the brain, how the family of regulars were in a horrific accident, how all of them should have been dead, but they survived by a miracle, and I think I may have made a terrible mistake. So now I'm terrified to leave the diner. Terrified because I didn't let her pay for my drink. I just don't want to know what happens.